left off, which is part 7 of our ongoing series of, again, why the middle class is disappearing. Part number 7 is income inequality. Now, all of you are familiar with the concept of income inequality. Maybe you feel like you are living in this reality, so to speak, of income inequality. All of you remember the Occupy Wall Street process, or what do we want to call that? We want to call it a movement. I don't know if it's really a movement because they didn't do anything. I mean, to be a movement, you got to actually go somewhere. I don't think Occupy Wall Street went anywhere. They went and sat in the park and complained, and nothing else happened. At least as far as I saw it. If y'all saw it differently, you can call it whatever you want. But the Occupy Wall Street situation, let's just call it that. We can agree that it was a situation. And from about 15 years ago, this is probably around the 2010 era, sometime around there when Occupy Wall Street happened, people were complaining about being in the quote unquote 99%, and they were complaining about the quote unquote 1% who had control over most of the resources even back then. So I don't know if any of you have been paying attention to life since then. You don't even have to watch the news, but just life. You know what's happened since the Occupy Wall Street movement occurred? And as a matter of fact, while I'm talking about it, let me see if I can find out when Occupy Wall Street actually happened. So I'm looking it up, and the Occupy movement. So it's called the Occupy movement. So this was the Occupy movement is the international branch of the all right, so the Occupy movement was an international populist social political movement, this is Wikipedia, that expressed opposition to social and economic inequality and the perceived lack of real democracy around the world. It aimed primarily to advance social and economic justice and different forms of democracy. The movement has had many different scopes since local groups often had different focuses, but its prime concerns included how large corporations and the global financial system control the world in a way that disproportionately benefits a minority, undermines democracy, and causes instability. And the Occupy Wall Street thing that happened in Zuccotti Park in Lower Manhattan, it began on September 17th, 2011. And then other people just picked up and started doing the exact same thing, Occupy Wall Street. So I'm bringing all that up to say this. Their complaint was that we, the people complaining, are in the 99%, while they, the people they're complaining about, are in the 1%. Again, I don't know if y'all been paying attention for the last 10 to 15 years, but the 1% and the 99%, the gap between the two of them has not gotten smaller, it's gotten bigger. So they occupied Wall Street for nothing because nothing was achieved. They were complaining about the gap between 1% and 99%. The gap got bigger since then. So what did they achieve? They achieved nothing. So it is disrespectful to call this a movement because the only movement they created was further in the direction that they were complaining about. So this was a very ineffective protest. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? All right, so the gap has only gotten larger, and it will only grow larger from here moving forward. Let me let you all know. I'm letting you all know it's only going to grow larger from here moving forward. That gap ain't changing. The only way that gap will change is if we have complete chaos in the universe, all of our systems fail, and there becomes barbarism, meaning people are out in the streets just taking each other's heads off. And I mean literally taking each other's heads off. And if you are not physically capable of that, if you're not a Second Amendment card carrier, and you're not physically capable of taking somebody's head off or blocking somebody else from taking your head off and your family's head off, you don't want that kind of chaos, which means you're left with this 1% and 99% gap getting bigger. Those are your only options. The only way that gap goes away is if we get complete chaos and complete barbarism. I'm talking blood in the streets, literally blood in the streets. If you ain't ready for that kind of life, I suggest you get comfortable with this 1% and 99%. You just get on the right side of the equation, or at least start heading in the right direction of the equation. That's what I suggest you do. But you can do what you want. I'm going to give you the information. So what I suggest is that you not participate in another Occupy Wall Street movement. These people are fucking losers, complaining about how they're losing as if that's supposed to draw sympathy. What is the point? You're losing, you're complaining about losing. I call you a loser. That's what I call somebody who complains about losing. You're a loser. That's what you're doing. I suggest you not do that, but instead get yourself closer to the 1%. Maybe even if you don't get all the way there, get yourself closer to the 1%. The way that it works in the United States, or let's just say in the world period, is that the people with the most money, they have so much money, like tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, that they bring the average of the 1% up really, really high. But you don't have to be super duper rich in order to get into what we would consider 1% if you are not considering the people with the tens of billions of dollars, because they make the number so high that the 1% gets higher than it actually needs to be. I would suggest that you get yourself closer to that 1%, even the 10%. 10% is good. And this is a super logical point that I just gave you. Again, anybody could rationally understand and appreciate The problem with this is that many people don't have the mindset to see themselves joining the 1%, the 5%, or the 10%. Most people just see themselves as perpetual losers. Therefore, when someone like me says this, they say the first response they have, the first reaction many of you had mentally when you heard me say this was, Dre, it's not that simple. It's not that easy. Everybody can't do that. Here's my situation. I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to get there. See, that mindset right there is the reason why you're losing. The fact that you defaulted to that is the exact problem. That's the problem. That's not the solution. That's the fucking problem. That's the part that we need to fix. That's why mindset is the foundation of what we do over here at Work on Your Game. We can fix the mindset, then we can fix the actions. We can fix the actions, we can fix the outcomes. But if you don't want to change your mindset, then nothing's going to change. And again, I'm not here to convince you. I'm not in the convincing business. I'm not in the mind-changing business. I'm in the business of telling you what it is, how it is, and if we're on the same page, then we can work together. And if we're not on the same page, that's fine as well. I've written a lot of books. So maybe you don't like this book, you might like the next one. The whole point here, if you're catching my metaphor there, is many people don't have the mindset to see themselves joining the 1%. They don't have the discipline to even find out what it would take to be in the 1%. And they simply don't believe in themselves enough to think they could ever join the 1%, even if they found out what it took. They just don't think they can. And it's not that far out of reach as you may think it to be. Many of you listen to this right now. When I say the 1% and 99%, you think the 1% is so far out of your reach that you can never get there no matter what you do. I will challenge you on that if you want to be challenged. I'm going to challenge you on that. You should be happy you're being challenged on this. If you ask most people what they think it would take to be in the top 1% of the United States of America, what do you think? What's the answer? It's my question to you listening. To be in the top 1% in the United States, let's just say in income, because top 1% can mean many things. Let's just say in income. How much income would your household, that's everybody in the house, add all their money added together, need to make every year in revenue, just revenue, in order to be in the top 1% of income earners? What do you think? What's your answer? Now, think about your answer before you listen to me continue. Pause it if you need to think about it. How much do you think will put you in the top 1%? Don't Google it. Just think about what number you think that is. Now, I'm going to give you some information. The answer is around $800,000 per year. That'll get you into the top 1%. $800,000 a year. Now, again, I just told you, this number gets pulled upward because of the massive wealth of the people at the very top of this group. The people at the very top of the 1% bring that $800,000 number up higher than it would be if we weren't counting these outliers who are so far ahead of everybody else because of the massive wealth at the top. So I would say if you cut that number in half, you get to about $400,000 a year. That will put you in a very comfortable position financially living in America. There's nowhere in America you can live with $400,000 a year that you would be in an uncomfortable position. $400K, you can live well anywhere in the United States. I live in Miami. I live in a place that is not cheap to live. At $400,000, you can live in Manhattan. You can live in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. You can live in what other places quite expensive? Miami is another one. Actually, the places I just said. New York, anywhere in New York, anywhere in the Silicon Valley Bay Area, LA, and Miami. All right, those are probably the most expensive areas in the country. And of course, you have little suburbs where there's big, expensive houses and $1 million houses. Assuming you get to choose where you live, those are the places as far as heavy population where it's most expensive. You can live in any one of those places for $400K a year and be fine. You'll be fine with $400K. That puts you in a very comfortable space to where you have freedom and you have options, which is what everybody wants. There's a fair number to aim at, and you could even start with half of that at $200,000. That puts you in a pretty good spot. You might not be able to live everywhere with $200K, depending on how many people you have to support with that $200K. But $200K gets you in a good spot too. So when you think about this top 1%, folks, I want you to put this number in perspective. As again, 800,000 puts you in the top 1% factually. I would say that number is skewed because the people with the most money are pulling the number way up. Cut it in half, 400,000, you're good anywhere in America. Cut that in half, 200,000, you got a good start. You got a good platform to begin with. So what I would suggest is wherever you work, is it possible for you to make $200,000 a year doing what you do? The answer is yes. I keep working and keep getting better and providing more value. If the answer is no, you could not make $200,000 doing what you do, I suggest you start looking for other alternatives. Point number 8. Today's topic, once again, is why the middle class is disappearing. Number 8, the gig economy. You know what the gig economy is, right? That's like Uber Eats or Uber period, Lyft, any kind of temporary work, DoorDash. It's kind of things where you kind of can jump in and out of doing work or not doing work. So if you want to drive Uber all day on Tuesday, you can make a couple $100. And then on Wednesday, you want to take the whole day off. You don't have to work at all. That's the gig economy. You basically take a gig when you want to and don't take a gig when you don't want to. That's the flexibility of the gig economy, which is good for people because they want to just be able to work when you feel like it and not work when you don't feel like it. The problem with the gig economy is that there is less stability of your job. You actually don't have a job. You are a contractor, and there's no stability to that. So what does this mean? Even though the job provides money, it's not long-term stable employment, meaning you don't know how many hours you're going to work each week, you know how much money you're going to make each week. It's hard to plan for a family or a future if you don't know where the money's coming from or when it's coming in. So you may need that money today, but not need it next week, or you may be needed to work today, but not next week. Maybe it's a very busy day for deliveries and you can make a lot of money because there's a lot of work, but the next day is not busy at all and you can't make any money because there's no deliveries to do. All right. Again, how can you plan for your future and plan to pay your bills if you don't know when the money's coming in or where it's coming from or how much it's going to be? See, the problem with this is planning for the future. That when, where, how, or if, when it comes to money and drawing, as opposed to drawing a paycheck, is like, all right, how is that going to work? How can someone plan for anything, build a family, raise kids, if you don't know how you're going to pay for the stuff that those things cost? This is a good question with no answers when you're working inside of the gig economy. So you don't want to be caught in here, even though it seems fun from the outside looking in. Once you get in it and you don't have any other options, the reality is a little bit different than what it seems. More and more jobs are becoming gig economy jobs because what employers are doing are they're creating more flexibility for themselves by using gig workers. Now, why do companies use gig workers instead of their own workers? Why does a company like, who's a place that does deliveries? Any company. So there's a company called Sweet Green. Some of y'all may know Sweet Green. They're all over the country. I was in the Baltimore, D.C. area. There was a Sweet Green there. I seen them in Philadelphia, where I'm from originally. They're down here in Miami. Most cities have Sweet Green in a lot of different places. And when you order delivery from Sweet Green, they are contracted with DoorDash. So as a DoorDash delivery driver, quote unquote, a DoorDash driver who delivers the Sweet Green meals, back in the day, you may remember that if you ordered somewhere, if you order from, let's say, Pizza Hut, there was a Pizza Hut driver. He was a Pizza Hut employee who delivered the pizza. Nowadays, if you order from Pizza Hut, I don't know exactly what Pizza Hut does. I don't eat there, but they probably use a DoorDash or Uber Eats driver to deliver their meals. So they just contract with these companies. And why do companies do this? Why have DoorDash deliver the meals, Sweet Green, then have a Sweet Green person deliver the meals? Why? Because now Sweet Green is not responsible for that person as an employee. They're just a contractor. They have less responsibility for you when you're a contractor. That could mean not having to pay healthcare, other benefits, and generally you as a company are not as responsible for the behavior of those people. So I told you this story a few weeks ago when the GoPuff delivery driver called me and gave me a tongue lashing and got mad at me because I only left her a $1 tip on what was like a $15 order. And she was saying, well, we do a lot of work and hard work to deliver your stuff. You should give us a bigger tip. And she hung up on me before I had a chance to respond and cuss the bitch out. And then when I reached out to GoPuff and told them what happened, they apologized. And when I realized that those are contractors, I said, they ain't gonna do shit. Ain't really shit they can do. Worst they can do is just say, we're not gonna let this woman deliver orders for us anymore or reprimand her in some way. But really, they don't have any control because it's not their employee. You don't control her. You can't control them. So this is the way that it works. So while doing gig work can seem fun and easy because of its flexibility, again, from the outside looking in, those of you who have seen it, the trade-off is everything that I've just told you. And again, this is part of the squeeze because if you don't know when your money's coming in and it's not consistent, well, what about the rest of your life? Because money ain't everything, but it controls a lot of things that are everything. It's connected to a lot of everythings, right? So this matters a lot. And more companies are going to gig work and not having employees, which means there's less opportunity to have stable income. And on top of the automation, on top of the technology, you see where this is going? Point number 9. Today's topic, once again, is why there will be no middle class. Number 9, more debt with less income. So many people and families in the United States of America are becoming just like the government. We are picking up more debt, adding more debt to our balance sheet, and we have less income to take care of the debt, just like the government, right? Becoming just like them. As costs go up, people are taking on more debt. In other words, borrowing money in order to pay for things because their income is not covering it. While at the same time, they have less income to pay down the debt. So the debt just keeps getting bigger. So you're getting further and further underwater. So as the debts increase, people are paying interest more, and they're paying more on interest than they're actually paying for what they spent. So this can happen a lot of times with credit cards or loans. You're paying more in interest than what you actually charged on the credit card or what you took out as a loan from the beginning. And that gets people deeper and deeper into the red. And without something income wise to basically cover those costs, those increasing costs. The costs just keep rising. You just keep paying it off and you never get out of it. This is the trap that people end up in. There's a book called The Debt Trap that I just finished reading, and it's about college loan debt specifically. And if you haven't read that book, you should read it so you understand how the colleges basically colluded with the United States government to create this situation where they have people basically underwater financially for half of their working lives, maybe all of their working lives, for a degree that they got a loan to get because they believed the degree was going to help them make money. But now you're in debt based on the degree that you got with the loan. So they tricked you. This is what they did. It's a trap. That's why the title of the book is perfect, The Debt Trap. So in other words, citizens of America are doing the same thing the United States government has been doing for the last 30 years, borrowing more money and can't pay for it. As people get deeper and deeper in debt, some people start to feel more despair because of their debt, because they just don't want to be in debt. They feel more helpless and more as if there's nothing they can do about their situation. And when people feel like there's nothing they can do about their situation, they truly believe that. What do most people do? They give up. They quit. And when people have no hope, the economy gets worse. So the United States economy is based on the faith of the people. When people feel good and they feel abundant and they feel like things are going to get better, the economy thrives because people will spend more money. When I feel like the future is going to look bright, I'll spend all the money I got because I believe I'm going to make more. But if I feel like the future is going to be grim, then I'm going to hold on to my money because I'm not sure I'm going to make more. That's how the economy fluctuates pretty much. So when people don't have hope, the economy suffers, and this becomes a perpetuating cycle. If it perpetuates for long enough, we call that a recession or a depression, and we don't want those. Now, while of course it's advisable to get rid of any debts you have as quickly as possible, I would suggest you focus on the other side of the spectrum, which is making more money. Yes, you want to get rid of debt, but instead I'd rather focus on making more money. Same way I tell somebody, yes, you want to avoid distraction, but instead you should focus on finding your focus. You should focus on finding your focus. It's better to find focus than try to avoid distraction. It's better to figure out how to make more money than it is to get rid of the debt. Again, which one are you focused on? Are you focused on the negative or are you focused on the positive? I believe that difference matters, and it matters a lot. What are you focused on? Getting rid of the thing you don't want or getting more of the thing that you do want? Either way, you end up with the same outcome. Which one do you want to focus on? And creating more income puts you in a more advantageous position than just focusing on getting rid of the thing that you don't want, which is the debt, as I just explained. This is the reason why we have Work on Your Game University, so I can help you build your business. Whether you already have a business, build it up so it's more systematic and strategic when it comes to producing more revenue and getting the right people in, or starting your business. If you're a person who wants to just start out and do something new, I can help you with the baselines and the foundations and building it up into something that's more mature that works on a consistent basis. So that's the reason why we have the university. I'll tell you more about that in one moment. First, let me recap what we talked about here today. We're on part 3 of our ongoing series, Why the Middle Class is Disappearing. Number 7, income inequality. So Occupy Wall Street complained about the 1% of the people who were in, and 99% complaining about the 1%. Well, the gap has only gotten bigger. So they complained and it achieved nothing. Top 1% in America means 800,000 a year. That number is skewed because of the billionaires up there who are pulling that number up. I will cut that number in half. 400,000 puts you in a comfortable position to live anywhere you want in the United States. Cut that even in half at 200,000. If you're working somewhere that you don't have the potential to earn 200,000, get a new job, start a new business. Number 8, the gig economy. Less stability of work, which means you don't know when your check is coming or where it's coming from or how much it's going to be. And that puts people in a tough position. Number 9, more debt with less income. Just like the United States government, people are taking on debt because they can't pay their costs with their income, and their income's not rising fast enough, and people just get deeper and deeper. And when people get too deep into something they feel like they can't fix, they quit. Most people are not resilient, they quit. So what I would suggest all of you do is, instead of focusing on getting rid of debt, focus on increasing your income. And if what you're doing right now does not offer that potential, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and let's get to work on something that will offer that potential. Even if you're starting from absolute zero, from absolute scratch, that's exactly what I did. That's how I started my business. I will help you get yours in order based on your skills, what you want to do, and who you want to serve. Again, that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all